afternoon. My name is Bartlomiej Malczynski, and I'm the EU specialist at the Institute of Public Policies in Kraków. Our institute operates the European Information Center Europe Direct Kraków, and today I will be speaking with our dear guests. Madam Aida Hodzic, Acting Assistant Minister for Multilateral Relations and Head of Information Department at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Professor Marek Moroń, lecturer, former Polish diplomat, researcher in the Center for Comparative Studies of Civilizations, Jagiellonian University. Thank you very much for being here and the opportunity to speak with both of you in this episode of our podcast. So,
pleasure to be here.
Thank you. The main topic of today's meeting is Bosnia and Herzegovina international politics, also in the context of the Polish presidency in the EU Council. And as Minister Sikorski announced, the continuation of intensive political dialogue with the Western Balkans countries in the connection with the European Union's enlargement. But firstly, I would like to ask you about the news from this part of the world, because given escalating political tensions following the Milorad Dodik's conviction and his subsequent statement rejecting the authority of the court of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and how might this verdict impact the stability of the country?
So the hard questions you start with this, but of course it's something to be expected due to the circumstances, political circumstances in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but not only Bosnia, but in the region also. So I don't believe that verdict itself is a danger to the stability in the country. I believe the reactions of Milorad Dodik, who is actually under strong influence of Russia and often is called Putin's proxy in the Western Balkans, his reactions and the laws that were adopted last night in the National Assembly of Republika Srpska, which is one of the entities of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Those actions are endangering stability in the country. So now we will wait for the institutions of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Constitutional Court and Prosecutor's Office to act. But what is important also is that European Union, I wanted to say international community, but it's such a fluid notion, not really concrete. So I believe that European Union and other partners like UK and US need to give their strong support for Bosnia and to the legislative process and the state institutions of Bosnia and Herzegovina in order to uphold the stability. It's not just stability of Bosnia and Herzegovina or the region. Also in the region, you saw in Serbia, there are protests, massive protests, and some of them are also announced for tomorrow. The huge protests are announced for tomorrow, which also coincides with the Independence Day in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So tomorrow it's it will be really interesting day. We will celebrate the Independence Day, but in Serbia there will also be a massive protests. So I will now say my also personal view. I believe the things have intensified because also there are negotiations on peace talks in Ukraine. And I believe that Russia also needs a new instability on the European continent. And personally, I believe that this is why at this moment they triggered these actions from Milorad Dodik.
Thank you for drawing the broader regional and geopolitical dynamics involving the neighborhood of the Bosnia and Herzegovina. And the next question is from Marek Moroń about the phone call between Erdogan and Vučić. Could you?
Yes, I got the information. I mean, it is the information from Al Jazeera that there was a telephone call from President Erdogan to President of Serbia, Vučić. And of course, we don't know what they're talking about because the communique was very general about peace, region, and so forth. But is it possible or realistic to expect that the telephone of President Erdogan had something to do? And that was day before yesterday was the telephone, I believe, or yesterday, had something to do with this Dodik case. And if so, then what would Erdogan perhaps be advising, bearing in mind that in the past the relations between Erdogan and Dodik were quite, I would say, well, quite good. So could you comment about just the telephone call and the potential role of Turkey?
Thank you very much. I wasn't aware, I didn't see this telephone call, but I imagine that it really happened because there were really many telephone calls, really intense from also other leaders or special representatives of some countries to leaders in the region. I cannot speculate on what was said.
No, of course.
But I believe that there's interest in stability in the region. I believe Turkey has also it has an interest in this region, also historically, politically, but also economically. And very much interest, not only in Bosnia and Herzegovina, where maybe it has some ties. There are how many? Around 9 million Bosnian people in Turkey that declare themselves as Bosniaks or Bosniak descent, which is more than Bosniaks. There are Bosniaks in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So I believe there's interest from Turkey in stability of Bosnia and the region. But I believe also there are more economic or investments in Serbia itself from Turkey. So there is also that aspect that I believe it is to take into account. Turkey is a partner here, and if you recall, there used to be trilateral meetings, so recently didn't take place, but there did happen trilateral meetings with the president of Serbia, Bosnia, and Turkey. It happened on several occasions. And there was this question of this highway from Belgrade to Sarajevo that was supposed to be funded by investments from Turkey. So our minister, Minister Hakan Fidan, they had a bilateral meeting in Munich conference. Minister talked to him about the situation in Bosnia, and Mr. Fidan assured of support of Turkey to stability of the region and Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction to the current situation in the country. And Mr. Hodzic, I would like to ask you to explain a little bit the complexity of democratic system of Bosnia and Herzegovina. We can call it constitutionalism, yes, or politics of census. Could you explain it to the Polish audience and please specify the characteristic of the democracy in the country? And because perhaps many people may already know that you have, for example, one special three-member body called the Presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's implemented since the Dayton Agreement, and it has the crucial role in the, for example, foreign policy of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and among other things, it represents the Bosnia and Herzegovina in international organizations like EU, for example. And how does it work, and who is who in this complex democratic system of the Bosnia and Herzegovina?
Well, if I might start with some personal note. So I've seen many times and have been asked many times the question, and everybody said, oh, Bosnia, it's too complex, you know. Sometimes I would joke, I said, well, we're perfect for the EU, you know, the system of the European Union, it's so complex, we know how to manage the complex situations. As you all know, Bosnia and Herzegovina was one of the republics of former Yugoslavia. And when in the early 90s, from 91, when Slovenia and Croatia wanted independence, we had actually the what's the word, referendum in English. I was trying to, and it's the same as in Bosnia. So a referendum on whether you want to be independent. And it actually took place on 1st of March. That's why I say we have a celebration of our Independence Day tomorrow, where majority of citizens have said that they want to have an independent country. Unfortunately, didn't sit well with some countries in the region and some elements, and so the war has started, the aggression from Serbia has started on Bosnia and Herzegovina. But I wanted to, when I said I wanted to give you a personal note, when you say it's a complex, I know it is, but it is something that is an outcome of a war. And I personally am a survivor of war. I'm a survivor of Sarajevo siege. So I was in Sarajevo when the war started. I remember it clearly. I was 15 years old. So I know what war means. When I now listen to what's going on in Ukraine or other parts of the world, I know specifically the sound of the grenade. I know the sound of the sniper. I know what the rocket is, but I also know what the humanity is, because it's at the crisis situation where the humanity actually shows from people, and people show who they really are. So I was in Sarajevo, Sarajevo under siege, where my best friends were from totally different nations. It didn't count during the war. I mean, for us, for kids, for talking to each other, but it did count to some other people. So. There were many attempts during the war to bring peace. Talks have been made throughout the war. Unfortunately, for a period of time, the talks, I'm sorry, it's reviving since I'm hearing the talks about Ukraine. Now I relive, everybody in Bosnia relives everything that happened 30 years ago. When there were negotiations for the peace, they were actually just taking the consideration of what was on the ground, where the troops were with the forces, which only encouraged the aggressor to take more, you know. Not to dwell, if you want to let me to speak more about war, I can't, but the former president of France and the United States in 1995, after 3.5 years of war, have decided, especially after Srebrenica genocide, which was in July in 95, and there were also these huge massacres in Markale in Sarajevo. I believe that was also too much for the world's audience. So there were negotiations that were held in Dayton in the United States, and the peace agreement was signed over there, as you know, as the president of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia and Serbia, at the time Serbia and Montenegro have signed the peace agreement. So the constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina is actually a part of the Dayton Peace Agreement. So it's a part of peace agreement where they actually negotiated together with Milosevic, with Tudjman, Ali Izetbegovic was there were different teams, and they negotiated the current structure of Bosnia and Herzegovina. I could have tell you just, you know, Bosnia and Herzegovina has two entities. One is there's Brčko district, but that doesn't explain how we reached there. The negotiations took into account the situation on the ground with the troops. So that's why we have two entities. One of them, so it's two entities. One of them is called Republika Srpska, so it's not a republic per se, it's name of one of the entities. The other entity name is Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And there is Brčko district, which is a very crucial strategic point in the northern Bosnia, which actually doesn't belong to, it's neither of the entities. There is supervisor in the office of the High Representative. So international community also decided to install the office of the High Representative, and there were several of them. At some point, they included so-called bond powers. Bond powers mean that High Representative can impose a law at any time, and he can remove officials from the office, as one of them, Pedi Ejdan, in one day he removed 50 officials from the office. Later on, some of them returned. And also High Representative, since Bosnia and Herzegovina is still on the agenda of the Security Council, he also reports back to Security Council on the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So at the beginning of the war, I will just mention also this, at the end of the war, at the beginning of the peace, there were 60,000 foreign troops in Bosnia and Herzegovina, so-called SFOR. During the war, it was UNPROFOR, and then it was SFOR, stabilizing force. Now we still have some foreign missions, foreign military missions. It's EUFOR, now it's European force. That it's not that numerous, but still, I believe as a symbol, it's very important, but also as a partner to Bosnia and Herzegovina's stability. So Bosnia, I told you we have two entities. On the state level, we have the presidency, which is collegial body, and where we have 3 members of the presidency that that rotate every 8 months. So one of them. So yes, there's presidency, collegial presidency, where according to constitution, there are 2 representatives from federation, 1 from Republika Srpska. From Republika Srpska, it's a Serb member. From federation, there are 2, it's a Croat and Bosniak member of the presidency. So in the constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina, there are constituent people who are Bosniaks, Serbs, and Croats, and others. Others are people who don't want to identify as any of them, or just want to be citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Also we have Council of Ministers as a government. We have a chair of the Council of Ministers. Right now, I'm proud that we have a chairwoman, and also in the presidency for the first time we have a woman. And we have 9 ministries also in the Council of Ministers. Also, some of the ministries coordinate on certain issues. For example, Ministry of Foreign Trade and Economic Relations coordinates policies with the entities in the terms of economy or environment or issues that pertain to that portfolio. Ministry of Civil Affairs coordinates entities where is health, culture, education. In the federation, so Republika Srpska is more monolith. In the federation, we have 10 cantons. It's also, as you said, rather complex, and every canton has a government and their bodies that are elected. It is complex, but as the European Union, if there's a will, there's a way. So it has been complex for a while. We haven't changed our structure. We did empower more state institutions after Dayton these 30 years. For example, there was a very, and maybe the most successful reform was the joint armed forces of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So we had different armies during the war. Now we have joint armed forces. And there are many other reforms that were done, taxation, many other reforms. So right now, unfortunately, we have this political status quo. We had it since the last year, since the European Council decided to open negotiation on Bosnia and Herzegovina. So a few days later, High Representative made a decision, and Milorad Dodik just reacted badly to that decision and blocked everything. So instead of right now negotiating and having a negotiating team to negotiate with Bosnia and Herzegovina and the European Union, we are looking, we have a very different situation. So for a long time, maybe people had divergent views, maybe this is something for, as another question, maybe people had divergent views on NATO accession. But for the European accession, there's a high percentage of support in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It did go down. So there was a support for Director for European Integration every year makes this opinion poll everywhere in Bosnia about support for European integration. So it was in the high 90s percentage. Then with years, it came down to, I think, 78. It's still huge. It's still big. But what has happened? You know, why did it decrease? In Federation, it's higher than, it's slightly lower in Republika Srpska, but it's still important support, more than 50%, up to 60. So what has happened? The process itself is just taking too long. So I am part of the European integration process, not a part, I'm following it. I used to work in Director for European Integration, then I joined ministry, I was in the EU department, I was also in Brussels. So I was there when we negotiated Stabilization Association Agreement with the EU, with the European Commission. I was in Brussels when we got the candidate status. Last year, I was with the minister in Brussels when we got the decision on opening negotiations, but it's been 20 years. In these 20 years, I haven't seen Bosnia negotiate. I haven't seen Bosnia become a member of the European Union. And this is reflecting, it's also partly on our side, but it is also a position of the EU. So EU wasn't ready to enlarge, unfortunately, till the war in Ukraine. Then I believe that they understood, the member states understood that actually it is their best tool, the enlargement, the best tool for stability. And that geopolitical moment had to be taken into account, not just an economic one, you know. So people, what has increased is not that people who are against the European Union in these opinion polls, but the people who said, I don't know, it took too long. People don't understand anymore what it means to be the member of the European Union. Sorry, maybe I talked too long. I hope I answered your question on complexity of Bosnia.
No, thank you very much. So now I would like to ask you about maybe could you characterize the society of Bosnia and Herzegovina? Because as we can see, the complex political order of the country, of this federal state, reflects the complexity, complex reality of social and ethnic diversity in the country, and of course the historical context. So Mr. Moroń will ask about it later in a more specific way, but please elaborate on this question, please.
Just to let you know, we are not a federal state. So even saying we are a federal state, it's taking political position in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So it has a certain political connotation. So we're not a federal state, we're a state with two entities and Brčko district.
Okay, excuse me.
No, just, I know, I encounter very often this statement, but just to let you know that it is not per se, not in the constitution.
Okay.
So Bosnia and Herzegovina has been for centuries a country where it's a literal melting pot of cultures. And in Bosnia and Herzegovina, ethnicity, culture, and religion overlaps in some point. Let me explain you. So I already told you before that the constitution recognized these peoples like Bosniaks, Croats, Serbs. So Bosniak as a national identity in Bosnia coincides with the Muslim religion. So Muslims are generally Bosniaks. Croats are Catholics, Roman Catholics, and Serbs are Orthodox. We also have Jews in Bosnia and Herzegovina who came to our country after they were expelled from the Kingdom of Spain in 15th century, I believe. So there is also this tradition. So Bosnia is a melting pot of religions, of ethnicities, and Sarajevo as a capital is often called a little Jerusalem because of its the combination of different religions, different religious sites. So literally, I don't know if you've been to Bosnia or to Sarajevo. It has often been said that in the 100 square meters, you have Catholic cathedral, Orthodox cathedral, synagogue, and the mosque. So it is literally like that, and it does work. I know often Bosnia, when you read the news, I only read negative things about hatred, wars, etc. But the truth is, we have been living together for centuries, and we know each other. And people are mixed. You have mixed families also, you know. So everybody is free to be what they want. Unfortunately, I have to say that the war and some external factors have made their impact on composition of pre-war mixture of ethnicities in Bosnia and Herzegovina. In Republika Srpska, there were non-Serbs were expelled, Croats and Bosniaks. Many of them returned, but not to the extent of as before. And there was a genocide in Srebrenica. That will mark this year on the 30th anniversary. So this year is really important because it marks 30th anniversary of genocide in Srebrenica, and last year we have adopted in United Nations General Assembly the resolution on marking and commemorating the victims of Srebrenica. And that, for me personally, it was incredible that we had to fight for this resolution. It is just commemorating the victims. It wasn't even directed at any country or any people or any person. It was just commemoration for the victims. And also it's 30 years from Dayton. So this year there will be several commemorations in Bosnia, but it is also the opportunity to rethink what was achieved in 30 years, not only ourselves within Bosnia, but also with our partners in the European Union and its member states, and also the overseas partners who have invested a lot in the recovery, but also stability and reconciliation in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Well, thank you. And my next question is related to the NATO membership. And is NATO membership currently considered a top priority of the Bosnia and Herzegovina?
Integration in the European Union and NATO are priorities, foreign policy priority, and the regional integration of foreign policies priorities of Bosnia and Herzegovina. EU has regional cooperation and the EU integration have full support. At least declarative support by some politicians, but NATO, since the war ended by NATO bombing Serb positions throughout Bosnia, but also around Sarajevo, Serb politicians are not from Bosnia and Herzegovina, not that inclined to NATO membership, to NATO partnership, yes. So it's quite strange. So there, earlier, I think in 2003, there were guidelines from the presidency, even signed by a Serb member of the presidency, at the time, Borislav Paravac, where he said that the priority is full integration in NATO membership. Then all three members of the presidency have brought the strategy on foreign policy of Bosnia and Herzegovina that expired last year. There suddenly this disappeared on the request of Serb member of the presidency. So it's strong partnership, but with and cooperation with NATO. But most definitely, Bosnia and Herzegovina, we understand that NATO membership is our guarantee of our safety, stability, and we are surrounded by NATO states. Croatia, our longest border, and also Montenegro is there. So the countries in the region, including Macedonia and Albania, they're all NATO members. It is clear that we are here, we cooperate, we have exercises with them, our armed forces, we cooperate in Brussels very strongly. In the media now, we have out the information that Secretary General is coming, but also last year we had really intense cooperation. So the former Secretary General has came to Bosnia. Then we had a North Atlantic Council, so the biggest decision maker in the NATO structure came to Bosnia on the 2nd February and had excellent meetings. And we were also, in October last year, the host of one of the biggest events that NATO organizes. It's a symposium, partnership symposium. So we had more than 250 delegations coming to Sarajevo, and we discussed the common approach to common threats. So I hope we can continue and on our conditions to become a NATO member. And my personal view is like I would prefer to see us member of NATO before member of the EU, if I have to compare the two. But of course, I would like to see my country become member of both of these organizations and alliance.
Yeah, I have next question from a friend of mine from the University of Łódź. And how would Bosnia and Herzegovina plan to guarantee the security of the border with Serbia if it were a union border? Yes, because it is the border of the Republic of Serbia with minor exceptions.
I didn't understand quite the question. If we were an EU member, or how do we plan?
Yes, if the Bosnia and Herzegovina will be a EU member, yes. How will
then of course we would apply all the EU rules. So right now, Bosnia and Herzegovina has concluded the negotiations with Frontex, with the EU on Frontex. We have initialed this agreement, and we are waiting some technical wording. We have initialed in end of the year, and we want to sign it. So the key aspects of the Frontex agreement is actually operational cooperation. It's also support. It's joint guards, equipment from the EU, return policy to the EU. This EU, yes, I saw that the EU has signed agreements also with Albania, Montenegro, North Macedonia, but also with Serbia. So Frontex is here, and definitely if you're a member of the EU, we apply all EU rules and according to standards and rules, and we would definitely defend the borders of the EU as a member.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, I have one question and actually two. With Bosnia, is the entity or a state, if you like, with the majority of population being Muslims. Do you think that these Muslim communities, not only in Bosnia, but in Central and South Europe, which live here for 600 years, they should know each more about each other and should work together to establish some kind of European Islam voice to be heard on European forum? I mean,
It's an interesting question.
Central, South Europe. Well, Eastern to an extent, yes. So I mean the Muslims who live in Europe for 600 years, who are Europeans, and they will not integrate because they have nothing to integrate with. They are part of Europe.
Yeah, Professor, I fully agree that there's nothing to integrate with.
Yes.
I myself am a Muslim. Would you say that? If you saw me, I mean, often I meet some different perceptions of Muslims in Bosnia, Muslims in Europe, but we are really autochthon Muslims here. Maybe I'm not the one who should speak about the organization of Muslims, but we have Islamic community, and our Islamic community is advocating separation of state and religion, is advocating for the European integration process, I mean in political sense, of Bosnia and Herzegovina into the European Union, but also as for the stability and prosperity, the integration into NATO. I know that when I was posted to Brussels, we had our common friend, Professor Moroń, Dr. Jevada Gajic. Yes, she was coming, she was talking, explaining to European MEPs in European Parliament the views of Islamic community. And I believe that the Europeans, autochthon European Muslims, are also the ones who should speak about against Islamophobia, to explain that the westward ideals are not contrary to also Islam ideas. So the cultures are not different. It is the religion that is practiced, and all religions are differently practiced in the sense it's a difference of cultures, and we are European Muslims with their European values and ideals. As for the organization, I wouldn't go there because it means that Islamic communities among themselves should coordinate. I know because we have Islamic community in Bosnia, but they are also coordinating work in Croatia, Slovenia, and some European countries, and different. I mean, it's really broad. Whereas Bosnian diaspora, they are who is joining who believe that they belong to Muslim community in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They are following the Islam that is coordinated from Sarajevo. But in the region, there are also Muslims in Albania, Macedonia, Serbia, Montenegro. So yes.
Okay, thank you. And I have one last question, maybe. Yes. Every year, the Conference of Islamic States Cooperation is meeting in Jeddah and nominates a town for the following year to be the cultural capital of Islam. And recently, just recently, such conference took place in Jeddah, and they have declared the capital of Islam for 2026 to be Kazan in Tatarstan. Now the question is, would you support the initiative to nominate Sarajevo as the cultural capital of Islam for 2027?
Nice. Thank you for the idea, Professor.
Yeah, but would you support it? Yeah, but would you support it?
Bosnia and Herzegovina is an observer with the Organization of Islamic Conference. We are not a member. I hope that we can join. I believe from the region Albania is a member, or from Europe that only Albania is a member. I believe this is an important multilateral organization, and we appreciate their support also with regards to adopting the resolution, UN resolution on commemoration of Srebrenica. But in general, OIC always has its own resolutions and statements with regards to Bosnia and Herzegovina and supporting our sovereignty, stability, and territorial integrity. If Bosnia and Herzegovina can be this capital of culture, why not? This is an alley that we can explore. We have to see the procedures. I don't know them by heart. If a non-member of the organization can actually apply for this.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the meeting and for the interview. Madam Aida Hodzic, Acting Assistant for Multilateral Relations and Head of the Information Department at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Professor Marek Moroń, lecturer, former Polish diplomat, Center for the opportunity to discuss this.
Yes, just one word, best greetings for the coming Ramadan, Ms. Aida.
Thank you. Like
from me, from our community to the Muslim community in Bosnia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I forgot I didn't speak about Polish presidency. So I wanted to thank, but yeah, okay, maybe next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.